the robot. Hi, welcome to Open House. It's nice to see some friendly faces. Hello. This is the second event of this that we are doing, and the first one was so fun, so I'm anticipating more fun. Melody Owen of Nutritious Truth is our moderator, so she's going to be letting you in and fielding your questions and all that kind of stuff, so that I am free to answer questions and work with the speakers one at a time, and I don't have to worry about looking at the chat and all that fun stuff. So if you do have any questions, just type them in the chat and she will answer them for you. Welcome to the people who are watching us on Facebook too. And if you want to join us interactive on the call, we are here on Zoom and the link should be in the comments. It's on the Facebook event too. I've posted it everywhere that I could possibly think of. So you should be able to find it. Alrighty, so we are gonna get started. We're going to start with a question just to warm everyone up because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I see that Jackie is our first speaker, so thank you, Jackie, for being brave. So we will get to you in a moment, but I just want to start with a question just so that we're not completely like, hey, everyone, and it's your turn. For those of you who don't know me, there are a couple of people watching who don't know who I am. My name is Danielle Benson. I run the Inspired Speaker Academy, and this is kind of a live version of something that I do once a week. Some of the people who come on the calls will be familiar with this. With my Authentic Speakers members who are part of the membership portal, I offer weekly practice labs online, and they get to speak and then they get coaching and feedback from me. So we're doing kind of a mini public version of that, plus questions, because I realize that as soon as it's public, there's there's this resistance to speak in public, which is kind of the whole point. That's why we're here. I teach public speaking and voice. So I teach public speaking from a voice perspective. And the easiest way to figure out what I do is just to join me and ask me questions. So that's what we're going to do. Our first question, I wrote them down because my technology is not always reliable. The first question that we have that was submitted beforehand is how to overcome nerves, because a lot of us, when we are in public and it's like, oh, people are going to see me speaking, it can get nervous. And I don't know if you noticed, but my energy is quite high right now because this is still a new thing and it's a little bit scary. Nerves don't have to be a bad thing. They can give you a lot of energy. They can give you a lot of enthusiasm. The trick is not to let them run away with you. And I talk about this a lot in one of the premium courses that I have on my online portal. But to give you a couple of tips, just practicing over and over will get you to a certain point, but it's not always going to be super constructive. So it'll take away the fear a lot of the time. And most people, the kind of solution to nerves is just get up and do it over and over again. And they're not wrong. That absolutely does take a lot of the fear away. But the thing about doing something over and over again is that if we're not mindfully reframing, if we're not mindfully improving, if we're not getting feedback and acting on it, then just doing it over and over again, it gets you used to it. And it might take the fear away, but it's not necessarily improving what's going on, and it might actually be reestablishing some patterns. So if I have a pattern of always getting nervous before I speak, I could even reinforce that pattern by doing it over and over again, depending on how I approach it. So yes, practicing is definitely a solution to being nervous. Preparation, not so much. It does help to feel secure in what you're talking about, absolutely. But the biggest thing that I find to overcome nerves is to remember what nerves are. And there's two elements to nerves. There's a physical element of nerves, which is really just adrenaline. It's energy. And I'm quite hyped up right now because I'm a little bit nervous, but it's not running away with me. It's not making my voice smaller. It's not making me go blank and stare like a deer in the headlights. Because I know that it's just energy, and energy is my friend. Energy is a good thing. But the other component to nerves is the thought process, the fear of judgment. And that's where we can really turn that energy into fear. And because we have so much energy, so much adrenaline running through our body, that fear gets a lot of power behind it because we're already quite hyped up. So it's important to remember that that judgment element is something that we are not making up, but it's something that we're focusing on. And as a speaker, the more I focus on myself and how scared I am and how much I want people to like me and think that I'm doing okay, the more nervous I'm going to get and the worse I'm going to perform. And the truth is that when people are watching you, especially online, but also on stage, they don't want you to be perfect. They just want you to be present with them, and they want you to deliver what you've promised. So it's not about you. It's not about you being perfect. It's not about you impressing people. It's about delivering what you promised, being in service to people, and focusing on that connection. And the cool thing is, the more kind of weird and human and quirky you are, the more people get to know you and the more they'll enjoy your company, because that's what we love about human beings. We don't want a robot to talk to us. We've all had that robot voice on the voicemail when we're waiting on hold. It's a horrible thing to talk to. We don't want robots. We want humans, and humans are quirky, and humans are weird, and humans forget what they're saying and fail occasionally, and that's okay. That's part of the charm. So there are lots of other little tricks for nerves. The biggest one that I can give you, the quick and dirty trick is to just do some sort of physical exercise before speaking. Burn off some of the energy, get into your body, get your breath flowing, and that is a great one. I have a whole bunch more, but that's what I'm going to share today. Awesome. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. That was an anonymous question submitted before we started. And now with that lead up, I don't know if I just scared Jackie. Maybe I shouldn't have talked about nerves first. Jackie, are you ready to be a speaker? Are you ready to jump in? Melody, if you could unmute, or Jackie, if you could unmute yourself.
Yes.
Someone? Yes. Awesome. How you
So
doing? It's nice to see you.
I'll be kind of going through my notes as well.
No worries, no worries. And this is a live stream, but I like to work with people when they're kind of in rehearsal. So you can have something polished or something that you're working on. That's absolutely fine. So what have you brought for us today?
So should I start?
Well, tell me first. Let's give us a little bit of context about what you're doing, so that I know what kind of feedback to give you, if
Yeah.
if you want it. I'll ask you
Yes.
after if you want
Oh,
feedback.
I love feedback
Oh,
from
great.
everyone. I love
Hey.
feedback. So my goal in life is to share what I do, and I use hypnosis to help
Cool.
people change whatever's not working for them. Primarily, I enjoy working with professionals who are struggling with addictions to alcohol, cocaine, and other, drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and over these past several months since COVID hit, I've
Mm.
been offering complimentary group hypnosis sessions. And I have had about 6 or 7, and the next one coming up is on the 21st of October at 4 p.m.
Super. So is this going to be a promotion of that, or what do you?
No, maybe it should be, but I
Oh,
didn't think it would.
it's not too late. So what is the speech that you've brought for
So
us today?
my talk is I've been going to Rotary clubs and other service organizations to share that hypnosis is a tool to make change. What I have seen in my 15 years is people who are struggling with alcohol, their only option, they believe, is going to AA or rehabs,
Mm-hmm.
which is not true. And for professionals who are struggling with alcohol, they don't want to be seen at AAs. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be known going to rehabs
Mm-hmm.
because it's devastating for their business, for their family.
Cool.
So my intention is to let people know there's another option that's quick and it's easy.
Okay, great. So that's what
Right?
you're going to
So
talk about today.
that's what I'm going to talk about.
Fantastic. So I'm going to mute myself while you're talking so that everyone can focus on you. And I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And You don't have to worry about it. If you're very close, if I can tell that you're close to wrapping up, I'm not going to interrupt you. But
Yeah,
if you keep going way after the 5 minutes, I will just
yeah,
gently
of course.
interject,
Of course.
and then I'll give you some feedback afterwards. Is there anything in specific that you're working on, like that you want feedback on?
Uh, yes, so I would like feedback on if you didn't know anything about hypnosis.
Okay, great.
If you didn't know that it was, I mean, we all know that people struggle with addictions, but you didn't know what hypnosis was about. And would my talk be in the proper sequence for you to understand? And you get, oh my gosh, my next door neighbor is struggling, my brother's struggling, maybe I can get him to contact Jackie,
Okay,
because
super.
this process is making sense to you.
Super. So does it make sense, and do I resonate with the material? And
Yes.
does it just inspire me to action?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. I'm going to mute
And that
myself.
I'm not just all over the place, that I'm being succinct in my message.
For sure.
Yeah, whether is my message clear?
That's a wonderful focus. That's nice and
Yeah.
focused. It's a focused focus. Okay, great. So I'm going to mute myself and set the timer, and you just start whenever you are ready.
Okay. So, how many of you would agree that many business owners, entrepreneurs are overworked? How many of you would agree they are under a lot of stress? Yes. In a decade and a half of working with entrepreneurs to create amazing results at a subconscious level, what I have found is that there are several things that are preventing them from achieving success that I know can be resolved with hypnosis. They're burning out and not getting what they truly desire. Stress is consuming their energy. They're frazzled and fried, not enjoying their personal life. They have self sabotage patterns. And there's very little energy left after they've taken care of business. True, business is great, money is great, yet it's coming at a huge cost. Burnout, lack of fulfillment, broken relationships. And what I see a lot of times is people turn to things like that extra glass of wine that they require every night, and other things to self medicate. Their self sabotage patterns impede their success. This could be in business. Money comes in and it always seems to disappear. Or they jump from one relationship to another. You see, business can often also be the crutch they often hide behind. Then it's a downhill spiral from here on. Some go into deep depression. Many tell me, I feel like a failure, they say. However, it doesn't have to be this way. So, what's the solution? My expertise using hypnosis is about changing beliefs, shifting patterns, changing lives. People ask me, why did you start your business? Why are you so passionate about it? After growing up in India in an abusive environment, being beaten by my father practically every day in his drunken state, I've made it my life's work to discover a way to stop this epidemic, to stop the cycle, and to get to the root of these problems and help others create change fast. And by doing so, they can now have more intimate, fulfilling relationships and live happier lives. I created my business to dispel the myth that it takes a long time to free yourself from your past and from addictions. And the value I bring, the promise I make is to help people quit their addiction quickly. You don't have to spend months and years in rehab. And moreover, you don't have to go through the discomfort of withdrawals. I enjoy working with professionals, lawyers, doctors, dentists, engineers who have a drug and alcohol addiction. I love working with these professionals because they are financially successful people. And these are the people who make an impact on the world around them, their families, immediate and extended, their employees, and the families of these employees. It's the ripple effect, and this really excites me. So if you feel like you're being held back by your past, and if you have an addiction that you feel is controlling your life, then I want to have a conversation with you to discuss whether hypnosis is the right path to achieve your freedom. And to book your complimentary consultation, I want you to call me directly. You won't be talking to a receptionist or answering service. This call is private and confidential just between the two of us. My number is 604-551-4986. My website, www.thepowerwithin.ca. So what would your life be like when that stress was completely gone? Would you be traveling to exotic, fun places you've always dreamed about? Would you be excited to take that second honeymoon? Would you be thrilled to be skiing the slopes because you now have so much more energy than before? And what would another 30 years of vibrant health do for you, your children, your grandchildren? How much fun would it be? Would this bring you joy, a smile to your face? So will you please choose for you so that that second honeymoon and those fun vacations to exotic places becomes a reality? Thank you.
Lovely. That wasn't even 5 minutes. You had a whole 17 seconds left. How did it feel? How did that feel, saying
It
that?
feels good. I would rather do it in person
Yes.
because I
Wouldn't
can.
we all? Well, maybe not.
And my preference is always to stand,
Hmm.
so that I feel more grounded when I'm
Yeah.
standing. And
And you can stand if you're doing a presentation on Zoom or something. You just gotta, if you're on a laptop, you can just throw it up on top of some books on your desk, or actually any type of computer. You can just
yeah,
whatever you're using to film yourself. I do recommend that if anyone's doing a presentation, to be standing rather, even if it is online, because it does. You're absolutely 100% right. It's easier to be grounded. It's easier to be more energized as well.
yeah,
Kind of move around more if you're not
yeah,
sitting, because sitting just kind of
yeah,
goes. So
yeah.
other than that, anything else that you're aware of before I give you a couple of tips?
Not, not that anything else is coming to mind.
Okay, great. You asked for feedback on structure, so that's what I'm going to
Yes,
focus on. I am going to
thank you.
mention a couple of other things,
Thank
just because I noticed them, but I'm going to focus on the structure. Uh, I I liked it. I liked, especially the beginning. The structure at the beginning was really strong. You outlined the problem. You talked about the way people are being held back. At the end, I felt that you could probably switch. You kind of did the call to action, call me, book a, call me and go to my website, that kind of thing. You did that, and then you talked about what life would be like after. I would switch those. So I went, once you've outlined the problem, this is the issue. You could say something about what it's like to work with you. So if when you call, it's not going to be some receptionist. You will get me. A relationship is very important to my clients. You talked about why you liked working with people, so you could talk about your values and what it's like to work with you there. But then I would go into the benefits of working with you, which is kind of like that vision of what life would be like afterwards, and end with the call to action.
you.
Because when you've said, like, call me, this is my website, this is my number, you want them to be focused on that. You don't want to distract them after that.
Mm.
So once you've said, please pick up the phone, um, I wouldn't say the number. If you're online, you can put it in a description, or if it's a pre-recorded video, you can throw it in the bottom of the screen. And if
Mm.
you're live, you can give people your business card. Saying
Mm.
the number, that's a lot of work for me to try and remember a number and write it down. You can just say, I'll give you my number, and you
Mm.
can say the website because it's easier for us to remember word,
Correct.
but I wouldn't
Yeah.
say the number. And then you want to end with that, with some sort of, and you can say, call me, I would love to explore this with you, or something like that, but then
Yeah.
leave it there so that they can move into action straight away and they're not getting
Okay.
distracted away from it, because
Okay.
you want to
Thank you.
capitalize on that. What else did I write down? Oh, I don't know. So you said you're going to speak to Rotary clubs and that kind of thing. Are you speaking to a crowd that specifically is suffering from these problems, or are you just more kind of it's a general crowd and you're
It's a general crowd because
okay?
I've noticed that we all have somebody who's struggling in our life,
Totally. Oh,
you know.
absolutely. It's a lot more common than I think
Yes.
some people think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The reason I ask is because if it's not a group that is specifically, tailored, if you're not like going to speak at AA or something, I would be careful of the word you. You're using it a lot. You're directly speaking to us,
Yeah.
and that can it can make people feel like they're really being put on the spot, or they're
Yeah.
being kind of cornered almost.
Yeah. I
And
was toying
so the
between the
third
you and the
person,
them and the they.
yeah, and like third person is great because then you can use it like a case study. You can say, the people that I work with, they experience these kind of problems and they experience these kind of benefits, so that it's funny because sometimes you want to be a little bit combative and like get people to engage with you, but when it's something delicate like this, I think
Yeah.
allowing them a little bit of distance in the
Yeah.
third person is easier. And
Yeah.
so, and keeping that kind of, when people call me, they don't get my receptionist, they get me
Mhm.
specifically, instead of when you call me. It's
Oh,
just
I like that.
it's a little bit safer for me if I'm
Yeah.
feeling like I don't like I'm not really sure if I trust you yet because I just met you. um I wrote something else. What did I write? Oh, the question at the beginning, I I'm always wary of questions. They are really great to engage people, but if you're asking it in a way that isn't really, really authentic, it can come across as kind of overdone. Or, a lot of people start a talk with a question. So when you ask it, if you're going to ask the question, I'm not saying don't, but if you choose to, make sure that you really are genuinely asking a question and expecting a response, because there's nothing worse than that rhetorical, like, who here wants more money? And I was like, oh yeah, and no one wants to put up their hand. um, I mean, it's a good question, it's a genuine question, but make sure that when you're asking it, you're really expecting a response. And I think, as far as I know that we're mostly talking about structure, I'm just going to sneak one little delivery note in here. um, as far as that goes, you have this beautiful, compassionate energy to you. I can tell that you're very gentle, that you're really, really caring. Uh, don't don't lull us too much. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know if you were reading or not, but if you're speaking a little bit more off the cuff, and more, it's hard on Zoom because there isn't actually a person in front of you, and I think it's a lot easier when we're in person. But the more we can connect with that idea of like, I'm talking to a real person, feeling that energy,
Mm.
that'll allow you to ask that question more in a more fresh way.
Mm.
Because sometimes when there's this kind of almost this trap of when we're wanting to be too gentle and too compassionate, and I know this is especially hard for a hypnotist because you have that lovely, I'm going to make you safe, and you know, you are getting sleepy kind of voice. But when we're wanting people to engage with us, we want to feel a bit more like we do in conversation.
So at what point did I have that hypnotic voice? Do you know?
Um,
Oh,
it was kind of just very gently throughout. It wasn't
okay.
hardcore. Just
Mm.
very gently. There's a there's this. I don't know if it's because you really want people to feel safe and you're kind of falling into hypnotherapist mode, or if it's because you've rehearsed this a lot of times, and sometimes then we can fall into kind of story time narration mode.
Mm.
I don't know which one, but it was just very gently throughout. So
Okay.
part
Yeah.
of that is just uh, when you get up in front of people, it's a lot easier because you can look at someone and say the thing to them.
Yeah.
So when we're on Zoom, if you are using notes, look at your notes and then kind of internalize what you want to say and then say it. That helps.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just it's a such a subtle thing, but it'll help with the questions. Kind of why I
Yeah.
brought it up.
Yeah.
Does that
Thank
Was that
you so
useful?
much. Very, Danielle.
Oh, good.
Very.
I'm glad.
Thank you so much.
I love this. I can't wait to hear how it goes with going out and talking to clubs and stuff. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yay.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And this was broadcast, so you never know. Someone might have heard it and might contact you from this. Oh, and actually, that's a good point. For anyone who is speaking today, make sure after the call that you go on the Facebook group and just drop your contact information in there in case someone hears you speak and they're like, oh my goodness, I really want to contact that person. Just make sure you throw something up there. You did mention your website, but just go on
Yeah.
Facebook and type it in the comments.
Okay.
Super. Thanks so much, Jackie.
Thank you, Danielle.
Yay. Awesome. So it looks like we don't have any more speakers right now, but we were going to alternate speaking and questions anyway. So that's great. Where is it? I've turned the page. I can't see my questions anymore. Okay, so I don't want to. I just kind of talked about that, so I don't talk about that one. Here's one. I have a naturally quiet voice, but I have to speak for work. How do I speak without losing my voice and without it said without shouting. So how do I speak without losing my voice without shouting? And I think I like to kind of call it, how do I speak without having a personality overhaul? Like, what am I going to do to be heard at the back of the room? And I think this is a very common question that I get. A lot of people seem to think that they are cursed with a quiet voice, or maybe not cursed. Maybe you love your quiet voice. But I subscribe to the school of thought that we are not born with the vocal habits that we have as adults. So I studied the work of a lady named Kristen Linklater, who wrote a book called Freeing the Natural Voice. It's a fantastic book. I really recommend it. And she talks in the book about how, when we're born, when we're infants, most of us, I mean, there are obviously exceptions due to physical things that go on, but most infants have these beautifully loud, very expressive voices. The neighbors know how they're feeling all the time. But somehow, by the time we reach adulthood, a lot of those infants have turned into adults who have very quiet voices. And when they do have to speak at work, they don't really know how to be louder without shouting. And shouting is very bad for you because if I'm projecting from the throat, if I'm kind of shouting and speaking from the throat, I'm going to hurt myself. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't sound very good, and that's not an ideal situation to be in. But most of us are born as infants with these beautiful, expressive, strong voices. So what happens? And the theory is that we develop our vocal habits very young. So when you're 2, 3, 4, you're learning when it's okay to be loud, when it's not okay to be loud. And it doesn't take much to teach a child that it's not okay for them to express themselves. It doesn't take much. It takes, one angry word at the wrong time during a temper tantrum for a child to suppress their voice if, in that perfect storm. Not all of us, thank goodness, but it happens a lot. And so we develop these habits and these defense mechanisms in our voices very young. And by the time we're deciding who we are in our teens, probably, we've lived with that voice for so long, we think it's who we are. So to the person who submitted this question who says, I have a naturally quiet voice, I challenge that. I challenge that you have a naturally quiet voice. It may suit your personality and you may choose to speak quietly, and that's great. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. If that's how you like to express yourself, that's wonderful. But your body and your voice are an instrument, and you can learn to make it louder in a way that is healthy and that isn't against who you are, just by understanding how to use the instrument. So most of us, if we have a very quiet voice habitually, we're not breathing very deeply. And there's a lot of elements actually to this. The ones that are the easiest to deal with, there's more than this, but the ones that are the easiest are breath. So bringing your breath all the way down into your body. If I'm only breathing up into my shoulders, only so much is coming in and only so much can go out. And so if I need to be louder, I have to compensate with my throat because I don't have any more air pressure to carry my voice. So the first thing is to breathe deeper, to give yourself more power of breath so that the voice can go out further. And then the second thing, and I love this advice for introverts because we don't always want to be super loud, but once I'm breathing and my breath is coming out of my body, something that you can do is over articulate to be heard better. And this is something that a lot of us overlook is as we mumble and we're like, oh, no one can hear me. They're asking me to speak up. But maybe I could just speak a little bit more clearly and it's easier for them to hear me even if I'm speaking quite quietly. So I can over articulate, really hit those T's and D's and M's and L's and all the consonants. And if I over articulate, it'll be easier for people to hear me even if I'm not louder. And so that's a really good trick if you're feeling like you really want to hold on to your small voice. Over articulating is a really great way to go. And then one more tip, there's so many, but one more really important one is to capitalize on the facial resonators. So when my voice is in my body, when it's coming out of my chest, this is a lovely, beautiful chest voice, but it doesn't go very far. It dissipates very quickly. And the extreme opposite would be the nose voice, which sounds horrible, but it goes really far and it's very loud without me having to push and without me having to use my throat at all. So I'm not saying you should speak through your nose, but the kind of in between is the cheekbones and this kind of sinus cavities here, where I can bring my voice into my face just a little bit. And it's hard to tell with a microphone because I'm not in this big room. But when I bring my voice into my face and into my facial mask and into my cheekbones, the frequency of my voice changes and it's easier for those sound waves to travel further. So I'm not changing who I am. I'm not pretending I'm this really gregarious person. I'm not speaking from the throat. I'm not shouting, but I'm moving my voice from the chest into my face. And that doesn't really affect my personality in any way. It's just a physical change. And if I bring it into my face a little bit more, as long as I'm breathing deeply, then if I bring my voice into my face, it will carry further. And so that is my best short answer for how do I speak at work and be heard without losing my voice, without straining my voice if I have a naturally quiet voice. So I hope that was helpful for the person who submitted that question. Do we have another speaker? It looks like we do. Claudia. Hello, hello, Claudia. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Hello. It's my turn?
Hello. It's your turn. Hello. How are
wow.
you?
Well, I'm well. I'm yeah.
You had to think about it.
No,
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty busy creating a new plan of action. So
that's exciting.
I think what I've come to realize is that as I'm always in the verge of being here or there, and I'm kind of in writing the corners of different realms, because I'm trying always to create something new. So and something that fits my interest and serves a purpose. So this time I'm creating like an online movement class.
Cool.
To connect grandparents and their grandchildren.
Oh, that's lovely.
So that is what I'm thinking about these days.
Cool. So you have did you have a talk prepared, or are you going to be speaking off the cuff, or what's the plan?
I'm going to I've been researching different points of entry, but I didn't think of this speech too much. So
Cool.
I am going to roll it out and see what happens.
So you've
But
done a bit of research, but you haven't prepared the talk. Great.
Yes. So it does support these kind of projects that I'm doing, or
Super.
I'm crafting now.
Super. So what we're going to do is I'm going to mute myself so that you get the stage, as it were. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and then once 5 minutes is up, I'll just unmute myself and gently interrupt you if you go way over, but I'm not going to interrupt you if you look like you're almost finished.
my lights are terrible here, right?
It's all right.
Okay.
We can see you. That's what's important. You can't always do everything, right? So I'm going to mute myself, and you have the stage for 5 minutes or so, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Why I dance? I love dancing because I get to know myself in the moment through dancing, and I follow my intuition. I unravel what I want to express, and I also follow my curiosity. So there are many questions that I don't even have to make them in the head, but the body speaks for itself. My body reacts in the moment, but it's asking questions and answering questions and solving through movement. So if we add to this the idea, not just the idea, but if we add to this that we dance with somebody else, we are communicating, we are in a full immersion into our human capabilities and skills. So for me, dancing and improvising with others is a passion. I've done it since I was young. Of course, there is a vocabulary that you kind of start building. And there are many nuances to movement. You know, you can tap into spatial concerns, like you can dance to yourself, you can dance with another person in an interpersonal relationship. You can dance, the space can be a more wider space, and you project your movement. And yes, you can also dance, of course, on the stage, and that implies a different relationship with the audience, the person that looks at you. But, well, there are so many other things. Space, you can regard space as different levels, you know, and, well, but space is just one. You have time, rhythm, time is the speed you can consider, and there are so many variations. And by building this repertoire, that doesn't have to be a fixed repertoire, is something that you discover each time you start dancing. So I'm very passionate about this. And for me, dance is thinking in action, in the moment, and it's also becoming at the same time. It is becoming. It's not just thinking, it's not just moving, it is becoming. So I would like to invite anybody who would like to explore movement to contact me, because, for instance, I'm creating a class where I would like to connect grandparents with their grandchildren in a Zoom conversation, in a Zoom meeting, because many seniors are now isolated and cannot see their grandchildren. So I think this could be a great opportunity to invest some time in having a nice creative activity, and at the same time tapping into own family resources, and at the same time trying to lower the sense of loneliness that many grandparents are having at the moment. So I hope you can follow me. My name is Claudia, and you can search Moving Conversations. This is my, I think it will be my new brand name. So this is what I'm trying to craft. I hope to see you.
Oh, I love that. Moving Conversations. Oh, I vote for that as a brand name, because it's like it's moving, like emotionally moving, but also physically
Yes.
moving. I was like, oh, it's exciting. That's cool. I really like that. So how did that feel? I know you were speaking very much off the cuff. I know you didn't prepare anything. How did it feel doing that?
Very good, actually. I was kind of relaxed, and I think when I have passion and I know what the end result is, that I want to get myself more invested into this idea, and I want to also polish a little bit my speech so that at some time I have some things to say and give a rationale for joining.
Yeah.
So that moved me forward, instead of many times, for those who don't know me too well, when I start speaking, I'm like, oh, trying to find the word that I am trying to find, and I can't find it, and I get stuck, and so on. But here I had it like, okay, I was moving forward. I felt that.
You were moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so it
great.
was good.
Cool. I forgot to ask you what type of feedback you were looking for. So is there anything in particular you wanted feedback on? I prefer to ask this beforehand, but I totally forgot. Well, do you want feedback at all? And then
Yes, I want feedback. Whatever
what type of
you
feedback are you
think.
looking for? Or just anything?
Whatever you would like to say. Yes. For you, Danielle, sometimes you told me that I was leaving the end of sentences
Yeah, the
open.
upspeak. You
I
didn't
was
have too much of that.
speaking sometimes. Sometimes when I do that, it's because I'm like less reliant on what I'm saying, or less confidence, and so you end up saying like this.
Yeah, you weren't doing that. You weren't doing that this time.
I wasn't.
No, you were doing the thing that I do, which is like you kind of start a sentence and then you do another sentence and you go to another sentence. But that's, I don't know, I kind of like that, to be honest. This is very much a personal choice thing. So, this isn't a you must or you mustn't. Personally, and maybe it's because I do it, that's why I like it, I don't know. But I like it when someone is so passionate and so excited that they're not always perfectly formed sentences. Sometimes there's a bit of a start and then they go off somewhere and then they come back. And for me, that makes something interesting. It keeps it alive. That may not be what everyone thinks. That's what I think.
Yes,
so you weren't doing the upspeak. You weren't turning everything into a question. But
okay.
you were doing the thing that I do, where you kind of start a thought and then another thought comes in and then you go back to the thought, which I find very engaging, but that might not be engaging for everyone. It is
Okay.
something I am working on myself to
Thank
make
you.
it a choice instead of something that I always do. Because
I
I'm
I
all about
tried
choice.
looking. Yeah, I
Mhm.
tried looking at the camera at some point, but
Yeah?
I mean, I know it's very dark here. But
Are you feeling like you're in the dark? So I have a couple of notes that because I didn't know what you were wanting feedback on, so I just took notes on whatever. Um, so I'm just gonna give those if that's cool with you, Claudia.
yes,
Great. Just for context for everyone else, we have worked together a couple of times. Claudia has come to Practice Lab a few times, and she was at the last open house as well. So we have worked together a bit, so I do know her. So there might be some assumptions that come out here that you're like, oh, I didn't see that, but it's because we worked together before. Something that will help, actually, just while you were talking about your process, napkin planning is something that I talked about at the last open house that can help you with that. I haven't prepared a talk, but I want to make sure I stay on topic. I like to do what I call napkin planning. So I just jot down just a couple of words to make sure I'm speaking about things in the right order. That might help you. I really loved, I mean, I love listening to you speak because you're so expressive, and that makes me so happy. I was wondering if it might help to stand. We were talking earlier about whether or not to stand or sit when speaking. You are such a mover. That is your thing, and it's harder to move when you're sitting down. So you might want to play with standing up. Also, because it might help you when you're thinking, when you are looking for the word, make sure that you stay in flow while you are thinking. So sometimes what happens is you're thinking for about a word and you kind of cut us off. You kind of cut off your breath and you kind of shut down while you're thinking. So it's not wrong to look for a word, especially if you're speaking off the cuff. It's going to happen. That's not the problem. But you want to make sure that you're still alive while you're thinking. So keep the breath flowing, and you can especially because you were talking about how your body and your brain are so connected. So maybe moving might help you think. So standing might help with that, in that you keep your breath going, you let your body move you, and it will help with that. Because it's not that I don't want you to feel like you can't stop to think, because of course you can, you should, but let yourself continue to breathe, give your brain oxygen, stay in flow while you are thinking. And that is a great time to look at the camera, because you were looking at the lens. Sometimes when you get excited, you look away, which is totally fine. We kind of get taken away by a thought, but coming back home to the lens as much as possible so that we can feel like you were talking to us. That is a great time to come back to the lens, because it reminds you to stay in relationship. The danger of what happens when we're looking for our words is sometimes we sever the relationship with our audience in order to go and look for the word that we want. And we want to stay in relationship with our audience. So continuing to breathe, making eye contact while you're thinking of what to say next. Silence is not a problem. It's you want to fill that silence with life. So that would be my advice for that. I loved the becoming. Dancing is becoming, moving is becoming. I love that. Keep that in, whatever form this talk eventually takes. I would love that to stay in. And I also love that you started with almost like a topic sentence, like a title. Why do I love dance? And then you went into it. I loved that structure. It's a great structure for when you're improvising. Because you may get lost. But if you give yourself kind of like a title and then you discuss the title, then you don't get lost as much. So it's a great structure. It helps the audience. It helps you. Something that I would suggest if you do it again, knowing the purpose of your talk is very important. So your purpose was to get people excited about dance, to get grandparents and children on Zoom. So I would bring that relevance in a little earlier, contextualize why you're telling us why you love to dance. So still tell us that, but tell us that kind of maybe in the middle. Start with, I love to dance because it gets me into my body and it brings me into relationship with other people. And something that's really lacking is a relationship between grandparents and grandchildren right now. Go into the problem just a little bit, talk about isolation, maybe about older folks not having the opportunities to move that they used to because of COVID, that kind of thing, and then go into the reason I chose dance is because, and then you can talk about why you love dance, let your passion come out, and then the invitation at the end. So we're kind of bookending it with the relevance. That would be my suggestion for the structure. And I'm over time, so I'm going to stop there. But I loved it, and yeah, just stay with your beautiful expression, stay with your passion, and
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay. That was fun. I love that moving conversations. That's really, it's really got me. So we're alternating speakers and questions. Just a reminder for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, Melody is checking the Facebook group occasionally when she has a chance from moderating the Zoom call. But if you're watching the Facebook Live on Facebook, you are also welcome to join us. It's not too late. You can join us on the Zoom call. The link for the Zoom call is in the comments there somewhere. You can find it. I believe in you. And you can always join us. Melody Owen of Nutritious Truth is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person, and she has very generously offered to moderate for me. So she is doing all that. We work together a lot. And just to plug Melody, actually, before we go into another question, because some of you know her and some of you don't, we have worked together. I actually directed her in a one-woman show last year that she did at the Vancouver Fringe Festival, and we worked together. I coach her on speaking. She helps me with all sorts of things content related. We teach together sometimes, and Melody actually runs a storytelling workshops, so storytelling for business and also in your personal life, and also story circles. So if you are interested in doing kind of almost not quite like this, but like a drop-in to tell stories, check her out. And I'm sure she'll put her info in the chat or in the comments on the Facebook group or something now that I've told her to. Now she has to. I'm sorry, I've just obligated you, Melody. Yay. Oh, I was doing questions, not speakers. Questions. Let's take a look at some of the ones that have been submitted here. Oh, my contact lenses are giving me trouble. It's hard to read. What is more important? Sorry, I'm using two screens. It's like a whole long thing. What is more important, content or delivery? Oh, great question. The answer is, and this is not because I am biased because I teach delivery. The answer is delivery. And the reason for that is not because it's my thing, but because no one will hear your content if you don't deliver it in a way that people can listen to you. So content is extremely important, but it's only important when people are listening to you. If you have the best content in the world and you've put everyone to sleep because you're reading and your delivery is really quiet or really boring, it doesn't matter how good your content is because no one can hear you and no one is listening. So the answer to what is more important, content or delivery, delivery is more important as in it is, if you could only have one, have the delivery, but content is extremely important as well. If your delivery is fantastic and you're not saying anything, people will cotton on eventually. I mean, you make them feel good, they'll feel good for a while, but then they'll notice that there's nothing of substance in what you're saying. So they are both important, but delivery must come first. It's less that it's more important and more that it must come first. Because if I am not speaking in a way that is easy to listen to, if I'm too soft or too loud, sometimes you can be too loud, if I'm speaking too quickly, if I'm speaking in a way that is very boring or monotone, no one's going to hear this wonderful content. So content is very important, but delivery must come first so that you can focus on your content. Not that you want to get it out of the way, but that is the order it must go in. So, do we have any more speakers? No more speakers right now. I will answer another question, but I encourage you, if you've been thinking, oh, should I speak? Should I not speak? No pressure. I don't believe in pressuring people, but if you would like to, just know that there are spots available. So you can, if you want. Let Melody know in the chat if you would like to speak. So I'm going to answer another question. Based on Claudia speaking, I've noticed a lot of gestures. I would like to know if there are any do's or don'ts of gestures while speaking. Yes, yes, there are. Great question. There are lots of do's or don'ts. So the biggest do is, well, I guess the biggest do is that you should gesture. You don't need to gesture all the time. Everyone has a different level that they're comfortable with, and you must gesture in a way that is right for you. So it's not like there's a certain amount that is good or a certain amount that isn't good. It must suit your personality. But the big rule, the only rule, because I don't like rules, I like to break rules. The only rule that I have around gesture is that it must be in alignment. It must be contextualized by what you're saying. So if my gestures and my voice and my words are not in alignment, if they're not doing the same thing, if my brain is doing one thing and my mouth is doing one thing, but my hands are doing something else, that is the wrong way to do gestures. It's difficult to do, but when you're nervous, it can happen without you even noticing. So something that happens is I get disconnected from my body when I'm nervous. And if I don't remember to stay connected, if I don't ground myself, my gestures will be symptoms of the nerves instead of indicate what I'm saying. So if this doesn't make sense, think of if I'm nervous and my hands are kind of just moving all the time, and my speaking maybe is quite slow, and it's really hard to think and speak and do this at the same time. But you can see that my hands are completely out of sync with what I'm saying. That is terrible. And it will mostly happen as a symptom of nerves. So if I'm disconnected from my body, I might fiddle, and I'm not noticing that I'm fidgeting, so it'll happen. And that usually is completely unconnected to what I'm saying. So that is a bad way of gesturing. The other thing, as far as do's and don'ts goes, is that this is more kind of a how to help you gesture than a do or don't. But the reason why so many people find gesturing awkward is because they're having to think about what their hands are doing. And you don't want to have to think about what your hands are doing. Don't choreograph your gestures. Like if you're one of those people who's like, oh, I don't know what to do with my hands. So you're like, when I speak, I will say this, and I will do it like this, and I will hold my hand like that. And then when I'm done that, then I will do this. I don't know. This is not something people naturally do. But don't choreograph your gestures, because then that's never going to be natural. I mean, there might be the occasional highlighted, like if I'm very consciously playing a character and I want to indicate that it's a different character, I might go, well, this is me in character, and then I might come back. So that's about as far as I would go as far as choreographing goes. But you don't want to be thinking about your hands. You don't want to be thinking about what they're doing. But also, you don't want to kind of consciously bring them in and out. So when you're on Zoom, that becomes even more important because my hands are now out of frame. And so if they're coming in and out all the time, that's very distracting. I want to keep them in frame. But when we're on stage, it's less about coming in and out of frame, because that's not a thing. When we're on stage in front of real people, it's about when you have your arms down, when you're not using them, we can disconnect from the arms and they can become dead. They become like dead arms, they become dead weight. And then it becomes very difficult to bring them into play. And that's when you're tempted to think about them. That's when you're tempted to choreograph. That's when you kind of bring attention to them because you're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. These are my hands. Hey, I have hands. And then you put them down again. And you kind of bring them out and put them away like a prop. Don't treat your hands like a prop. Your hands are not props. Your hands are part of your expression. Your hands are an extension of your voice. So if you're finding gestures difficult, instead of overthinking them, which is always a bad idea, instead of overthinking gestures, bring your hands up at the beginning. So what I like to do is if I am starting a speech or if I'm, saying welcome or whatever, I always just bring my hands up in a kind of generic open gesture. Welcome, my name is Danielle Benson. Now they're up here. And once they're in play, I don't need to think about them. They will move of their own accord. And if I am connected to my body, they will move in a way that highlights what I'm saying, that is in alignment with what I'm saying. If I'm disconnected from my body, then they're either just being held at my sides or they're fidgeting and fiddling. But if I bring them into play early on, then that takes away that real awkwardness of, I've been speaking for a really long time, and my hands have been by my side for a really long time, and now I don't know how to bring them up. So it's going to be this weird gesture, and I'm going to talk with my hands, and then I put them back. You don't want to be self-conscious about them. So I hope that answered the question. I kind of went all over the place with that answer. There aren't really do's and don'ts of gestures other than make sure they are in alignment, they're connected to what you're saying. You want your voice body instrument to be working as one. It's not a whole bunch of different elements that you're bringing together. You are one being. Your voice, your hands, your words, your breath, they should all be working together, not as separate entities. I hope that helped. I kind of feel I went way off topic there for a moment. But that's what happens when you're speaking off the cuff. You get excited and sometimes you go off topic. It happens. So I hope I answered that question. I hope that was useful to the person who asked it. And we still don't have any speakers, so I might have to answer another question. Unless someone wants to tell Melody they want to talk. I can talk. I'm happy talking. I can talk for hours. But I worry that people get bored of my voice. They get tired of me. So,
Linnea, I have to leave.
Hello? Yes, Jackie.
I said I have to leave. So thank you so much. This was such a beautiful experience.
Oh, yay! I'm so glad. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yes.
Maybe we'll see you again soon.
Yes. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Have a great evening.
You too. For anyone who has to drop in and out, you're welcome to do that. This is a drop-in session. I'm not expecting everyone to stay the whole time. You can. You're welcome to, but you don't have to. There will be a replay on the Facebook group, and I'll also throw it up on YouTube. And you will get a link to it. If you registered through Zoom, you'll get the link to the replay. So if you miss some of it, don't worry. You will get to watch the whole thing. Claudia, was that a goodbye wave or an I have a question wave? Neither. No. Sorry, I just saw you out of the corner of my eye.
Okay, I'm waving to B.
Oh, you're waving to B. Oh, hey B.
I just wanted, I have to leave, and I just wanted to say it was really good, and I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be more prepared and try to be game on and jump in. And I really, the value that just from listening to people share the two, and your feedback was really excellent. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to be more prepared and use my hands, not jazz hands, and have everything. Come with that fresh attitude and know exactly what it is I want to convey to people. I think that's what I'm under a deadline right now. So I've missed you all so much. So I think that was another reason why I wanted to jump on. So I wanted to say blessings to everyone, and I wish you all a great experience here, and these little nuggets of wisdom, they're solid. So have a good one, and I'll see you all soon.
Thanks so much, B. It was lovely to see you. It has been a while. I totally understand being really busy. So thanks for making time to come on.
Jazz hands.
A little bit. Jazz hands. Jazz hands are okay if you're feeling jazzy, then they're fine. If you're not feeling jazzy, then they're bad.
No, I've got to upload something to my clients, so I have to get it done. Okay, well, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you so much, B. It was so nice to see you. Thanks so much for coming. I do just want to let everyone know you do not have to have something prepared. If you want to practice speaking and you don't have something prepared, I am very good at interviewing people, and I will ask you questions and you can answer them. So you don't have to have something prepared, but if you want to, great, because this is your public, your chance to share what you have to say. But if you don't want to prepare something and you do still want to practice speaking, or if you just want to jump in and have a conversation with me for 5 minutes, that is also awesome. So you're welcome to do whatever. It's all good here. This is only my second open house, and it's very experimental. I'm kind of making it up as I go along. It's the public version of something that I do for my clients on a regular basis, and I wanted to bring it to everyone because it's so fun and it's so nice to see everyone. And also I love like what B was saying about, you learn so much from each other. And sometimes it feels like the Danielle show when no one wants to speak. and I'm okay with that. But I also really love it when each of you all have so much to share, and I love hearing what you have to say and what you're up to and what you're doing and what you're passionate about. And I love the fact that I get to create a space where you can connect with each other and hear from each other as well. So it makes me very happy that you're here. So thank you. If we don't have speakers yet, so we have some more questions. Oh, I kind of answered that already in feedback, so I'm not going to answer that one. Oh, I want to make videos for social media, but I hate the camera. What do I do? This is such a great question. And I'm sure Melody is smiling and nodding along with this, because when Melody and I started working together, she was like, I never ever want to do video. I hate the camera so much. And now she does video courses and all sorts of stuff. So, hey, I understand cameras are intimidating things. Unfortunately, we don't get to hide from them anymore. Most of the world is conducting business online these days. Video is so important for getting people's attention on social media. Especially if you're a business owner or you're self-employed in any way, video has kind of become essential. But even if you're not, there's so many Zoom calls and meetings and so much going on online that getting over fear of the camera is extremely important. But I do completely understand. It took me a long time to get used to talking to a camera. I have a couple of techniques that I use. The biggest piece of advice that I would give is make the camera your friend. Get used to it. Anything that is new is scary. And especially talking to a piece of machinery that is not a natural thing. That is not something that we are naturally good at, because it's a machine and we're used to talking to people. I do occasionally talk to machines, but I'm not expecting some sort of connection. I'm usually just swearing at my computer because it's not doing something that I want it to do. So, I mean, we anthropomorphize, but that's not the same. So getting used to the camera. And I think the thing that happens is when we're scared of the camera, or we're awkward, or we just don't enjoy it, we tend to wait until the very last minute to use it. So if I have to do a video for social media, I might be writing a script, I might be preparing it in my bedroom in front of the mirror, but I only turn the camera on when it's time to actually film the video. And I think that is a mistake, because what we're doing is we're putting so much more pressure on this act of pressing record. So getting yourself comfortable with your camera way before you need to be using it. And depending on how often you're going to make videos, you may or may not want to take this to the extreme. If you are someone who hates the camera and you want to eventually have a YouTube channel, then I would suggest the very extreme version of that. If you are just, you have to be on Zoom more often and that kind of thing, you can tone down the extreme version. But I'm going to give you the extreme version because it's easy to tone down. But what I would suggest is practice recording yourself when you are not recording yourself, when you're not needing to record yourself, when it's not the final product. So get yourself in front of the camera as soon as possible. I don't even write down video scripts. I will write a couple of words to organize my thoughts, and then I will stand in front of the camera and I will rehearse in front of the camera, because it's making me feel, it's kind of naturalizing me, normalizing that environment. If the only time I have the lights on and the camera on is when I'm actually recording, that adds so much pressure. But if I'm used to the lights being in my eyes and the camera being in front of me because I've been rehearsing like that, then that makes it easier. It's a smaller step between rehearsal and performance. And we want to make that step between rehearsal and performance as small, as teeny tiny as possible. So you can record yourself just for fun. Do press record, because if you just have your camera set up, or your phone, or whatever it is, or your computer, whatever it is you're using, if you have it set up but it's not recording, it does not feel the same. So you have to press record. You can delete it straight afterwards if you want to. I actually, I developed an exercise called the video journal exercise, which if you've worked with me for any amount of time, I would have mentioned at some point, where I filmed myself speaking to my camera every single day for 100 days. You don't need to do it for 100 days. It was a challenge for myself because I was terrible with the camera and I wanted to get comfortable. And now I'm pretty comfortable. Now I talk to the camera the same way I talk to a human being, because I did that 100 days. it took me about 30 days to get comfortable. It didn't take me 100 days to get comfortable. So you don't need to do 100 days. And that is actually up on my YouTube channel if you want to see the results of that. But that taught me so much, because it's that we talked about exposure therapy earlier, you know, that's the practice, doing it over and over again. I did it every single day. I did it for 10 minutes a day, no matter where I was. I mean, I tried to do it at home because it was a private thing that I didn't want to share. But there were some days where I wasn't at home. I was staying. We actually went away for Christmas over that time. There were some days where I was just in a hotel at a conference all day, and I found a private place and I recorded myself. And so it was in different places, but I was getting used to that relationship. I was building a relationship with my camera the same way I would build a relationship with a human, by putting the time and the energy and the mindfulness into the relationship. And so I built that relationship, and it got to the point where it was very comfortable. So if you're really scared, you can start by just having the camera kind of in the room somewhere, and then having the camera in front of you and talking to it, but not pressing record, and then press record and talk to the camera, but don't show it to anyone, and then press record and talk to the camera and maybe show it to some close friends only. You know, you can really baby step it. You can break it down as much as you need to, depending on your level of fear or anxiety or awkwardness. But the most important thing is to take away that pressure of pressing record, because I have worked with so many people who, you know, we're standing, you know, opposite each other. There's a camera between us. The camera isn't on, and we're talking about what we're going to film, and they're relaxed and they're energized and they're talking and they're quirky and they're wonderful. And then I say, okay, great. So now we're just going to record that. And they go, hi, my name is Danielle Benson, and I am here to talk today about, and they just totally become robots. We're just cardboard cutouts of themselves, where 2 minutes ago they were saying exactly the same thing in exactly the same place, but they were so energized and wonderful in themselves. And so that pressure of pressing record is a very real thing. So the more you can get used to that, the more you can record yourself in situations where there is no pressure. You're not going to show it to anyone. There is no deadline. You're just doing it to get used to it. That would be my best advice on how to get comfortable with the camera. I have a whole course on camera technique and how to be good on the camera, but the very first thing you need to do is get comfortable with it. So before you even get there. That said, actually, this is a perfect time for a plug. Melody and I and a friend of ours named Jennifer Shantz, who runs Upper Story Films, are doing a 2-week video creation challenge. It's free to participate. It starts on the 26th of October. The next one starts on the 26th of October. We do them every 2 or 3 months or so. So if you're interested, Melody actually has that link, so she can throw it in the chat. It's on the Google Doc we're sharing. So she can throw that in the chat if you're interested, and I will throw it on the Facebook group as well. You're welcome to join us. It's a very safe space. It's a private space, so you're not publicly making video, but we just share some tips, and you know, it's always more fun in a group. So that's free. You're welcome to join us if you would like. All right, I am sick of talking. I think it's someone else's turn. Who else would like to talk? I'm not seeing anyone on my speakers list here. Melody, would you? Awesome. Great. Please save me from the sound of my voice. So,
hey everyone.
hi Melody. This is your moderator, the wonderful Melody Owen.
Yes, moderator now going to speak.
The moderator turned speaker.
And I don't have anything planned, so we're just going to do it off the cuff. So the first thing I think I want to say, Danielle was talking, somebody asked about, being more comfortable on video. And, 5 years ago, before I started working with Danielle, I was the robot. Hello, my name is Melody. And then as soon as you turned off the camera, I was me again. And I just couldn't be myself on camera. Fast forward 5 years, just about a month ago, I asked Danielle, I said, would you just tell me I'm doing a video and can you just like coach me through it? I just want a little bit of support. And we were doing this video, and partway through, she says to me, Melody, you're a natural. And I hit the floor laughing. And I said, sure, Danielle, after 5 years of training, I'm a natural. So I guess the moral of that story is that, you know, no matter where you're at right now, with good training, with a safe space in which you can practice, you can kind of come out of that shell and go on camera, on live, Facebook Live, or do courses, teach workshops, all the things I now do through the camera, comfortably and happily. So just so you know, it is possible. I am living proof. All right.
I love it. And I love the comfortably and happily, because there was a stage in between where you could do it and you did it really well, but you still didn't enjoy it. And you were like, I'm really grumpy. And I'm like, well, you look great. You're like, I know, but I'm really grumpy. So I'm glad to see we finally got into happy as well.
Yeah, I don't like this. I'm doing it, but I don't like it.
I don't care if I'm doing it well. I still don't like it. So Melody, before you start,
Yes.
what type of feedback are you looking for? And what are you going to talk about?
I'm open. And
Okay.
I think I'm just starting to run a series of mini storytelling workshops where I take
Great.
one small piece of storytelling and I teach it, and then people can bring a story and apply it and work on the story.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just quick 1 hour
Cool.
workshops, and I'm just going to tell people about a couple of those, I think.
Awesome. And you're open for feedback, so anything goes.
Open.
And
10.
as Melody mentioned, we have worked together for a while. So if you're like, whoa, Danielle's being really picky with her, it's because we've worked together. We know each other really well, and I'm allowed to pick on Melody. I say, I didn't actually ask her permission, but I just always just assume that it's all right. All right, so I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to time you for 5 minutes, and then we'll see what happens.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, I am Melody Owen of Nutritious Truth. Outside of that, I also teach storytelling. I coach storytelling for corporations, for entrepreneurs, and just for individuals who want to learn to tell their story in a way that makes them happy and helps them connect with other people. So I do a lot of things around that. I'm currently hosting some mini workshops. So if you would like to come join one, I would like to tell you a little bit about a couple of them that are coming up. So I have one called Tension Makes the Story. So have you ever been, at the movies or even at home watching a TV show or a movie, and you find yourself on the edge of your seat and you're listening and you're so enwrapped by what's going on in front of you that you kind of forget that you're in your living room, or you forget you're in the theater, you are in the story. And that's what tension does. So tension, it comes from Latin and it means to stretch. So when we tell stories, we want to stretch the tension to the point where it doesn't break. We don't want to break the tension and lose our audience, but we also don't want it to be, too loose. And so the story isn't interesting enough. And there are lots of ways to create tension. Part of the tension can come from the story itself and the structure of the story. Some of it can come from pacing. Sometimes using short and long sentences can help. So there are so many different ways that you can create tension in a story. And I have a 1 hour workshop coming up for that. And then another one, for example, is Know Your Why. I have a workshop coming up called Know Your Why. And if you think about it, humans have been telling stories since the beginning of time. In fact, you constantly have a narrative running through your head for a reason. And so when you're willing or wanting to tell a story to friends or family, or stand on stage or write down a story, sometimes people come to me and they're like, Melody, I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, and I'm really struggling with the story. And so I stop and I say, well, why are you telling this story? And we kind of, in this workshop, we get into all the reasons people might be telling stories, and you start to figure out like why your story is important to you. And when you get that, it gets a lot easier to figure out like what details do I want to leave in? What details do I want to take out? How do I want to structure it? How do I want to go about putting it together? And so I have a workshop called Knowing Your Why that will help you kind of really solidify why you want to tell the story you're going to tell, and how that helps you be a better storyteller. And then another one I have called Poetry of Words. I love this one. So storytellers, I find, often use too many words and give too much away. Have you ever heard someone tell a story and they're like, well, I'm going to tell you about the time I got chased by a lion and this. And you're like, well, you just gave it all away. And then the story isn't quite as exciting. There's not quite as much tension going through that story. And so poetry of words is the idea that you don't need to explain lots and lots and lots of things. In fact, poets, if you think about poetry, poets use very few words, but poems are strong, they're powerful, they have imagery in it. And so the idea of poetry of words is to look at our story and kind of actually pull it apart to its essence to figure out how little we can say in order to spark that imagery and imagination of the audience so that they come with us on the journey without overdoing it and not giving them enough imagination to kind of fill in their own details. So that's another workshop I have. I have several workshops. Those are 3 that are coming up, and you can find them on Meetup if you're on Meetup, and the Meetup is called Vancouver Storytellers. And I would love to see you there. If you're coming, bring a story or a story idea, because the idea is we'll learn a little bit, then we're going to play with our own stories so that we can actually improve our own stories. So I would love to see you there. Meetup.com, Vancouver Storytellers. Thanks.
Lovely. How did that feel, Melody?
Fun. I'm always fast. One day I'll learn to speak more slowly.
I don't even need to give you feedback. That was like my biggest point.
Yeah. Run away. I'm always like this, though. This is part of my style, and
It is.
I kind of fight with myself internally about it because it really is part of my style, but at the same time, probably slowing down would be useful.
That's a really good point, and I actually want to speak to that because I didn't feel like you were speaking too fast. I just felt like the gear changes needed more time. So what I mean by like gear changes is when you shift topic, or when you introduce a new topic or a new idea, or when there's an energy shift, give that more time. So it's well, people can tell you otherwise if they feel that, but I didn't feel like you were talking too fast, but I felt the lack of pauses. And so it becomes one really long run-on thing. It's, for me, I'm also a fast talker, so again, my biases come out here. But I don't ever want to squash someone's energy or take away their personal style, the thing that makes them them. That's very important. So it's not about that. It's not about I must speak slower. That's terrible. But if I'm speaking really quickly and I'm really excited and then I get to the end of that thought, then I can have a real pause before I move on, and I can allow myself to change gears, change emotional states, kind of change. It's like turning the page or something like that. You know, there's a shift in energy and in topic. That is what I would encourage. Not speaking slower necessarily, but enjoying those topic changes, enjoying those energy changes. So yeah, I mean, that was great. And I do feel, Melody, that you are a natural these days. So I'm going to be giving her very, very nuanced, very kind of more detailed advice, because Melody is a speaker. She's been speaking for a while. She does a lot of video. And I'm feeling kind of embarrassed with the feedback that I've written down, because everything that I'm going to say to you, I have also been saying to myself recently, and I've noticed that I need to. So everything I'm like, so Melody, you should think of doing this. I'm like, also, I need to do this. So I just want to be aware, and I want to acknowledge that I am also still very much learning. And my job is to share my learning with you, not to pretend that I am better or further forward, you know, in my whatever. It's just that perspective is useful. When someone is watching you, they can tell you what's going on. I'm not here to say that I'm an amazing speaker, because that is not what I want. This is not reality. It's not true. So yeah, the pauses definitely would be the thing that I would focus on the most, because you can use them to separate the thoughts a little more, because you're very energized. You have a lot of great gestures. Every now and again, your energy gets a little ungrounded. And I think it's because you're not giving yourself the time to take a moment and pause and shift and to reconnect. So you get excited and you're talking about this thing, which is wonderful, but then when you get to the end, you don't let yourself kind of almost recharge, refuel, you know? And so I get to the end and then I have to just keep talking and I'm talking about something else, and it becomes one long run-on sentence. So the gift of the pause, not necessarily at the end of every sentence, but at the end of every group of thoughts, the gift of the pause is to bring in new energy for the new thought, and also to ground yourself, because your voice got a little high, not nearly as high as it used to get, but just a little bit in the kind of young girl register near the end, I think, because you hadn't been regrounding yourself in between topics. And so, you know, you start off as a mature woman who's using her body to speak and the authority that comes with that, because when my voice is lower in resonance, when I'm speaking from my body, I sound more confident and I sound more mature. When I'm talking just with when I'm only speaking with my facial resonators, when I'm talking in my kind of higher voice, I sound younger, and we associate youth with a lack of experience. And so even though I know exactly the same things that I knew just now, if you were to meet me and I was speaking in this voice, you would think that I knew less than when I was speaking with this voice, just because we have that association with pitch and with youth. And so regrounding yourself, and energy it'll take you up and out, and that's fine. Using those pauses to reground yourself, reconnect with your body, and use your full resonance instead of just the top part. You weren't using just the top part, but you started to shift up a little as you went. Oh, I love the it's from the Greek, which means, you know, you bring these lovely, interesting facts into your talks. And that was when you started really getting into gestures. When you started, you were a little contained. And then as you spoke, you got more relaxed and more open and free. So that was cool to see. You only did it once, but at one point I heard you breathe through your nose and it was loud and distracting, but it only happened once. So well done. And also be careful. I know you have a desktop microphone, and at one point I think you leaned forward and your hair touched your microphone and I heard it. So be very aware of where your microphone is. That's why I like headset mics or lapel microphones. They're a little bit harder to touch, although lapel microphones, we often touch our chest. So maybe headset mics are best for this kind of thing. Desktop mics are great, but you have to be careful. The moment you touch your desk or you lean forward and your hair touches your microphone, we hear it, and then it's distracting and sometimes loud. That wasn't loud, it was just distracting.
Daniel?
Yes.
Daniel. I need to go, but I want to tell Melody that
yes.
I heard her at some point when she said something like this, and it was a nice change in rhythm. So she caught my attention a little bit more. I think you said something about the stories we tell. You were saying that you don't want to, I don't know, say something. I don't remember exactly.
She can look it up in the replay.
Yeah, but I like that. That change in tone is very useful. That is something that I would like to get better at.
We can work on that in practice lab.
Pilates teacher that I have, she does that. And then she changes, and it's interesting because it's more different each time. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Claudia. Thank you for that feedback, and thank you for coming on and for speaking, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Just looking at my notes, I think that's pretty much all I had to say for Melody. I did want to just ask, though, is your meetup, Vancouver Storytellers, is it live or is it online?
Currently, my Vancouver Storytellers meetup is all online. We do not
it doesn't
have.
need to be Vancouver. It could just.
It does not need to be Vancouver.
I
No.
was like, why are you
No,
saying
it does not.
Vancouver?
Because it's I started it
Because
as
when it's live,
a live meetup in Vancouver, and now that I can't do live, you can come from anywhere in the world and do my meetup with me. Yeah.
So this is your opportunity. Melody and I both used to only hold in-person drop-ins because that's what we were comfortable with, and now we're both doing online events. So if you wanted to work with Melody and see what it's like, Vancouver Storytellers is not limited to Vancouver at the moment because it is online. So I just wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say, for any of you who did speak today, obviously anything that other people say, well, I mean, it is public, but don't share it without their permission, because I mean, you could share the whole thing, I suppose, but don't take it out of context. But if you wanted to take some of this recording, if you would like a piece of it, if you're like, well, I really like what I said and I want to use it on my social media, let me know and I will send you that piece of the video, and you're welcome to use it. Because if you have it, why not? Why not? I don't believe in redoing things if you don't have to. Repurpose as much as possible. So Melody and anyone who spoke today, if you want that video of just you so that you can share it on your social media, you will get access to the replay anyway. So if you just wanted to watch back, you don't need the separate recording. But if you want me to separate out a piece so that you can use it and share it on your social media, or use it as part of another video, and you can't download it because I don't think YouTube lets you download other people's videos, or you can, but it's sneaky. But just let me know and I'll chop it up for you and I'll send it to you. I'm very happy to do that. It's your material. It was you speaking. So quite happy to send you that. We have time for one more speaker before we wrap it up. Is anyone feeling brave? Oh, I just dropped my phone. Is anyone feeling brave? Is that a yes? Sorry, I can't always see everyone. Was that you putting up your hand, Sam?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. It's just not on my.
Unfortunately, I have nothing to prepare again, just as usual.
Nothing prepared, but you want to speak. Well, what did you get your haircut? Looks good.
She did it good.
Looks nice. So we'll have to make a decision about what to speak about. Did you want me to interview you, and we can just have you
Actually,
practicing
I
speaking
can
that
try
way?
to speak something out of my head.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah. So, do you want feedback? I should ask you that before
Yes.
you start speaking. Yes. And
Yes.
what would you like feedback on? Everything, or is there something specific?
Just everything, because I'm just trying to speak something out of my head.
Cool. Okay, great.
Okay.
So you're
I'm
open to
ready.
feedback, and
Yep.
I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to time you. You don't need to take up the whole 5 minutes if you don't want to, but
No, I'm
I'm
not
going to
going
set
to.
a timer for 5 minutes. All right, whenever you're ready.
Hey, how are you doing today? My name is Sam, and thank you for giving me time to speak. And today I just listened to Melody talking about writing about poetry. And personally, I love to write poetry, but not for the good reason. And the reason I love to write poetry is when I came, English is my second language. And sometimes to explain myself, I realize using the word is better than using the English structure. So basically, I would just try to just put my thought together and write it out. No organization, everything like that. At the end, if you every time you read on it, you will find out the feeling is a bit different. And that is the reason I love about poetry. And unfortunately, if you want to know if I write any poetry, I either burn it or delete it, thanks for the technology. But I guess no one really want to know what I'm thinking right now. And thank you for the short minutes of expressing myself. And thank you.
Oh, you really didn't need the 5 minutes. How dare you assume that we don't want to know what you're thinking? You don't know what we're thinking. We might want to read your poetry. You decided for us.
Unfortunately, sometimes you don't want people to know what you think.
Well, that's fair. Maybe you don't want us to read your poetry, but I might want to read your poetry. You don't know. So I like that definition of poetry. How did that feel speaking very much off the cuff, just making it up as you go. How did that feel?
I felt I'm quite natural, and as long as I have the information, as long as I have the material ready, but ready.
So knowing what you're talking about is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
why previously we did the interview other stuff, and I'm getting better and better because I start to develop more material after your feedback, after I try to go to another other classes online.
Great. Great.
And also
Yeah. And knowing how long you have to speak is also useful because, you know, you said that in quite a succinct way. You said that very, very quickly and very cleanly. But if you wanted to, you could have elaborated on that a bit more. And so that's always something that you can be aware of. You know, I only have 30 seconds to speak, so I have to get to the point. You're very good, Sam, at just saying what you mean. But sometimes we need more information. And so if you know you have 3 minutes or 5 minutes, you can paraphrase. It's not quite repeating, but if I say something in a slightly different way, sometimes it's easier for people to understand me or, you know, get what I'm talking about because I say it once and they're like, what do you mean? And then you say it again slightly differently and they're like, oh, that's what you mean. So I am a big fan of paraphrasing and clarifying things because especially if there is any sort of language barrier or just it's new information or I have a slightly different sense of humor than other people, or for me I find I English is my first language, but I'm South African. I grew up in South Africa, and some of my cultural references are not the same as where I live now in Canada. Cultural references from South Africa to Canada don't always come along. We don't watch the same adverts. We didn't watch the same television growing up, and so I need to over explain things sometimes, not as a tool to hide behind, because over explaining can also be something that is dangerous. But I do find that if it's something that I'm like, oh, I need to explain this a little bit better, and even now sometimes I say, you know, turn right at the robot and everyone looks at me funny because where I grew up we call traffic lights robots and everyone's like, where's the robot? So if I explain it, if I over explain something, then if I use the wrong word,
I
I
know
cover
what you
for
mean. All
myself.
I know about South Africa is God must be crazy.
Oh, that's a great movie. Oh, I love that. It's a great movie. The gods must be crazy. So,
That's all I know about South Africa.
well, if that's the only thing you know, it's not bad. I have three things for you to work on and take with you. The first one is when when you're in conversation, hi, how you're doing is great. But if I'm speaking on Zoom or in a more formal setting, you know that I'm not going to answer you. So it's kind of weird to ask. And in a conversation, people do this too sometimes. They go, hey, how are you? What I'm going to talk about today. And I'm like, whoa, you obviously don't care how I am because you didn't wait for me to respond. So be careful of that. And if you know that they're not going to have a chance to respond, but
Mhm.
you want them to know that you care, you could say, I
Yeah.
hope you're doing well, instead of how are you? Because asking a question and then speaking again straight away, it's almost disrespectful, or it's at least showing that you're not thinking about what you're saying. Because if I ask you a question and I don't wait for you to respond, I don't really want to know the answer, so I shouldn't ask the question.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It is polite always in conversation to say, you know, hey, how are you doing? As long as we mean it and we give the person a moment to respond. If we're going to ask the question and then just move on, it's better to express it as a wish. I hope you're
Oh,
doing well, or you know, something like that. Uh,
okay.
articulation is something that I know we're working on already. It's
Yeah.
there were a couple of T's and S's that just got dropped, and
Yeah.
this is
So,
something that I think when we're under pressure or when we're rushed or when we're nervous or when we're distracted, it's usually the first thing to go. So taking the time, very consciously taking more time to finish the end of the word so that I'm hitting those T's and those D's and those S's at the end of words to complete the word. Um, it's slightly more mindful. It's a bit slower, but that might help. And then the last thing was eye contact. You two are
oh
getting better at,
yes.
but when we think, we look away and we're like, oh, what am I doing? And I've been doing it here, and it's not wrong. We want to do
Mm,
it as little as possible. So we just want to change your ratio a little bit. Right now, you're looking at the lens maybe 10% of the time. I'd love to get you looking at the lens maybe 50% of the time. That would be
That would be
fantastic.
that would be something that I better to look forward to, even though I don't know when I will be really using the tool. And the other thing is,
Yeah.
I really need to. I overheard that I really need to learn to not to cut people off. I have a tendency to do that.
Ah, and that may be related to the kind of asking the question and not waiting for the response. That's often, I mean, people see it as rude, but I think it's usually actually a nervous thing, or I'm scared that I'm not going to finish what I have to say. It's more of a distracted thing. So it's not. It can be read as disrespectful, but it's not usually where it's actually coming from. It's usually coming from an anxiety to do well, or a nervousness, or oh, I don't want to forget what I have to say. That distractedness. So yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I'm just making this is really not going to look good, but I have a suggestion for how to help you with eye contact on the lens. You can get a post-it note or something and cut a hole in the middle, and then
Mhm.
put that over the lens of your uh, computer or whatever. So the lens of my phone, I don't know if you can see it, but the lens of my phone's in that corner there. So if I put the piece of paper over, and then I could draw arrows or a big circle and arrows around to remind me. So I can do that. Oh, yeah, I can do that over. That reminds me of where to look. It's a silly hack, but it works, especially if you're using a computer. You can often just fold a post-it note in half and it just sits over really nicely. Cut a hole where the lens is, and you can put a big red circle, or you can draw a picture of an eye or something, just to remind you, because I think a lot of our computers, I know mine, the lens is so small, and it doesn't bring my attention. I mean, there's that little light next to it, but I don't like looking at light. It's not something that my eyes enjoy doing. So if I can kind of bring attention to the lens somehow to remind me to look at it, just to build the habit, that can be
Actually,
useful.
actually the last time you told me that, or during the conversation,
Uh-huh.
I discovered that if you just open the full screen or the speaker screen,
Hmm.
because I'm looking at you, that's why my eyes contact is getting better than the last time. It's not really a conscious thing, it's more like a leading thing. That's why I
Yeah.
realized.
And that's something else you can do, absolutely. And what I often do is I will make the Zoom screen really small and put it up. My camera's at the top, so I'll put it really small and up at the top of my screen, because if the Zoom call is over my entire screen, then the person's eyes are somewhere in the middle of the screen. But if my Zoom call is very small, then their face and their eyes are really close to the lens. And so naturally, you're usually drawn to looking at people's faces. And so the human eye wants to look at human faces. And so if I put those faces as close to the lens as possible, that absolutely does help. Yes, you're correct. Did that help?
You're
Was
quite,
that useful,
yeah,
Sam?
yeah. If I can remember them,
You can write them down, and also there's a replay, so you can just watch this back.
that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
thank you so much. We are getting kind of close to the end of the call, so I'm just going to wrap it up. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. You can access the replay on Facebook, and I will post it on YouTube. I'm going to edit it a little bit and post it on YouTube. And also, if you're on the Zoom call, I will send you the call. If you want to know more about working with me, Melody can post my contact information in the chat, and you have my email address because you're here. So you can always email me. And I do free vocal needs assessments. I like to talk to people before I work with them. So if you're curious, if your questions didn't all get answered and you think of other questions later, please do reach out to me. There are a lot of different options of, how to get some information from me. And I love chatting to people, and I love doing these, and I will be doing more open houses. The next one I think is late November, and then I probably won't do another one until January. So late November there'll be another one. There'll be another one in January. And you're also welcome to come and audit a practice lab for free whenever you like, which is similar to this. I do less talking, more coaching, and you can pay to be a speaker, or you can just come and audit for free as well. So that is an option. And don't forget, October 26th, for 2 weeks, it begins on October 26th. For 2 weeks, there's a video creation challenge run by myself and Melody and Jennifer Shan. So Melody is our content person, I am the delivery person, and Jen is the video person, the video tech. She's the videographer. And we're running a 2-week video creation challenge. It's free, it's on Facebook, and it's private. So it's not like, oh, I'm making my first video ever and it's out there in the world. It's not, it's in a private group. So don't worry about it. So you're welcome to join us, and Melody will throw the link in again. And any final questions before I say goodbye? Does anyone have any? No? Thanks so much for coming. It was so fun. I love these so much. I know there was something else I was supposed to tell you, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but I don't know. So we'll just have to do without. But yeah, give me a shout if you think of anything. If you need anything, I'm around. I'm working on getting better at social media, so you'll see me on there more and more. This is something that I have social anxiety, so social media has been something I have been wrestling with for a long time, but I'm getting better at it. So I'm really proud of myself. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much to Melody for moderating and making my life a million times easier by answering questions and organizing the speakers. And thank you. And do check out her story circles and her meetup, because she's great at what she does. I look forward to seeing you in the future, and have a wonderful evening. Love you. Bye.